Good day, students! In this video, I will teach you how to reduce the general form of the equation of an ellipse into its standard form. Now let's start with reviewing the definition of an ellipse. The ellipse is the set of points P in the plane such that the sum of the distances between any member of P and two points F and F prime, which are the foci of the ellipse of the plane, is a positive constant 2a. Now, in our illustration, if we can recall, if we choose any point on our ellipse, the sum of the distances from P to F and P to F prime will be a positive constant 2a. Now we have here two standard forms of an ellipse. The first one is the vertical ellipse. Now in the vertical ellipse, we can identify an ellipse as vertical if the denominator of x minus h quantity squared is greater compared to the other. On the other hand, if the denominator of y minus h quantity squared is greater than the other, therefore, what we have is a horizontal ellipse. Now let's have the general form of an ellipse. Now if the equation has the form ax squared plus cy squared plus dx plus ey plus f is equal to 0, where a and c have the same sign, can be reduced to the form x minus h quantity squared over a squared plus y minus k quantity squared over b squared is equal to 1. Or we have the other standard form as y minus h quantity squared over a squared plus x minus k quantity squared over b squared is equal to 1. We can reduce the general form to standard form by grouping the terms containing x and y and then factoring the coefficients of both x and y. It's followed by completing the square in both x and y. However, exception arises if the right side is sum of two squares, which denotes a circle, or the right member is 0. Now, if you have 0 on the right, that denotes a point, or if negative, this do not denote a conic section. Now, let's have example number 1. Now, in this example, we are asked to reduce to standard form the equation 9x squared plus 4y squared minus 36x plus 8y plus 31 is equal to 0. Now here, we will follow the steps that we have discussed in the previous slide. Now let's start. Now the first step is to transpose the constant on the right-hand side of our equation. So we'll have 9x squared plus 4y squared minus 36x plus 8y, and this 31 will be transposed on the right-hand side. So from positive, that will become negative 31. The next step is to group the terms containing x and y. So we have 9x squared and negative 36x. And for the second group, we'll have 4y squared and positive 8y. So we'll write the equation as the quantity of 9x squared minus 36x plus the quantity of 4y squared plus 8y is equal to negative 31. The next step is to factor the leading coefficient for each group. So we factor 9 from the first group and we factor 4 from the second group. So we'll have 9 times the quantity of x squared. And on the second term, we factor out 9 from 36. So we are left with negative 4x. Plus, we factor 4. So you have 4 times the quantity of y squared plus 2y is equal to negative 31. For the next step, we are going to complete the square for both x and y. So we have this pattern, b over 2 quantity squared. So for the first group, the value of our b is negative 4. So we replace b with negative 4 and we simplify the expression. So we have negative 4 over 2, which is negative 2. Square of negative 2 is 4. And for the second group, the value of b is 2. So we replace b with 2. So we have 2 divided by 2, which is 1. Square of 1 is 1. So therefore, for the first group, we need to add 4. And on the second group, we need to add 1. Now to maintain the equality of both sides, we need to add the number on both sides of our equation. Now, the next step is to add these numbers inside our parentheses. So, our equation becomes 9 times the quantity of x squared minus 4x plus 4 plus 4 times the quantity of y squared plus 2y plus 1 is equal to negative 31 plus, now here, remember that 4 is added inside the parentheses. And later on, if you are going to expand or simplify this expression, it has to be multiplied by 9. So therefore, it only means that we are adding not just 4, but 36 on the left-hand side of our expression. So therefore, we need to add 9 times 4. The same as the other number, so we need to multiply 1 by 4. So you have plus 4 times 1. Now for the next step, we need to factor out the perfect square trinomial on the left and combine the constants on the right. So, factoring out x squared minus 4x plus 4, we will have 9 times x minus 2 quantity squared, and for y squared plus 2y plus 1. So get the square root of y squared, which is y, and square root of 1, which is 1, following the sign of the middle term, which is plus. And finally, we'll have y plus 1 quantity squared. And on the right side, we have negative 31 plus 36 plus 4. Now, adding all these constants, we will have 9 times x minus 2 quantity squared plus 4 times the quantity of y plus 1 quantity squared is equal to 9. Now, the next step is to divide every term by the constant on the right. So, dividing all these terms by 9, we will have x minus 2 quantity squared plus 4 times the quantity of y plus 1 quantity squared over 9 is equal to 1. Now, here we are almost done. The last step is to rewrite the equation to standard form. Now, remember that we don't want any constant before our y plus 1 quantity squared. So, what we are going to do is we will multiply the numerator and denominator by 1/4. So, multiplying both the numerator and denominator by 1/4, 4 times 1/4 is equal to 1. So, this will just cancel out each other. And 9 times 1/4 gives you 9 over 4. So therefore, the standard form of our ellipse is x minus 2 quantity squared over 1 plus the quantity of y plus 1 quantity squared over 9 over 4 is equal to 1. And that is the standard form of our ellipse. Now let us proceed with example number 2. So for example number 2, we are asked to reduce to standard form the equation of the ellipse, which is x squared plus 3y squared plus 6x plus 6. Now to reduce this general form of an ellipse to standard form, our first step will always be transposing the constant on the right-hand side of our equation. So our positive 6 here will be transposed on the right-hand side, which will give us x squared plus 3y squared plus 6x is equal to negative 6. Then, we have to group the terms containing x and y. Now, if you can observe, there is only one term containing 3y squared and two terms that contains x. So, by grouping the terms containing these variables, we'll have quantity of x squared plus 6x plus 3y squared is equal to negative 6. And for the next step, we have to complete the square for both x and y. But in this example, if you can observe, we only have here a group of terms in x. We only have single term in y. So therefore, we only have to complete the square in x. So for our pattern, we have here b over 2 quantity squared. The value of our b is 6. So we substitute 6 in b. So we'll have 6 over 2 quantity squared. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Square that, we'll get 9. So we add 9 inside our group of x. So we have x squared plus 6x plus 9 plus 3y squared is equal to negative 6 plus 9. So after adding 9 on the left-hand side, we also have to add 9 on the right-hand side to maintain the equality. Now after that is we have to factor out the perfect square trinomial for x and combine the constants on the right. So to factor out our perfect square trinomial, we simply just have to square root x squared and 9. So square root of x squared is x, square root of 9 is 3, and then put a squared, and then add 3y squared and combine like terms on the right. So we'll end up with the quantity of x plus 3 quantity squared plus 3y squared is equal to 3. And now for the next step is we have to divide every term by the constant on the right. So we have to divide everything by 3. So dividing everything by 3, we'll have x plus 3 quantity squared over 3 plus y squared is equal to 1. And the last and final step is to rewrite the equation to standard form. So if your term doesn't have a coefficient on the left, just simply put 1 on its denominator. So our standard form is x plus 3 quantity squared over 3 plus y squared over 1 is equal to 1. And now for the last example, we are asked to reduce to standard form the equation 8x squared plus y squared minus 16x plus 2y is equal to 0. So the first step is to put the constant on the right-hand side. But if you can observe, there is no constant. So therefore, we have to proceed to the next step. we have to group the terms containing x and y. So grouping the terms, we'll have the quantity of 8x squared minus 16x plus the quantity of y squared plus 2y is equal to 0. The next step is you have to factor out the leading coefficient for each group. So for the first group, we have to factor out 8. And for the second group, since the coefficient is already 1, there is no need to factor out the coefficient. So factoring 8 from the first group will have 8 times the quantity of x squared minus 2x plus the quantity of y squared plus 2y is equal to 0. Next step is we have to complete the square for both x and y. Okay? So since there exists a grouping for both variables, therefore we have to complete the square for both variables. So our pattern here is b over 2 quantity squared. For the first group, the value of b is negative 2. So you substitute negative 2 to b. So we'll have negative 2 over 2. Dividing that, we'll have negative 1. And the square of negative 1 is 1. And for the second group, the value of b is 2. So we substitute 2 to b and we'll have 2 over 2. And that's equivalent to 1. Square of 1 is 1. So therefore, we have to add 1 to each group. So we will have 8 times the quantity of x squared minus 2x plus 1 plus y squared plus 2y plus 1 is equal to 8 times 1. So we have to multiply 1 by 8 because on the left hand side, we have here a factor which is 8 and that will be multiplied to 1. So to maintain the equality, we have to multiply 1 by 8 on the right hand side plus 1. So this number will be added on both sides. Since there is no number factored in this group, therefore, there is no need to multiply 1. And for the next step is you have to factor out the perfect square trinomial on the left and combine the constants on the right. So therefore, we'll get 8 times, here you have to get the square root of x squared, so that's x. Square root of 1 is 1 and copy the sign of the middle term, which is subtraction. So you have 8 times x minus 1 quantity squared plus, on the next group, to factor this out, you get the square root of y squared, which is y, square root of 1, which is 1, and copy the sign of the middle term. So you have y plus 1 quantity squared. And on the right, you'll have 8 times 1 is 8 plus 1, you get 9. So we're almost done. So the next step is divide every term by the constant on the right. So therefore, you have to divide everything by 9. Okay? And that will give you 8 over x minus 1 quantity squared over 9 plus y plus 1 quantity squared over 9 is equal to 1. So again, we don't want any constant on our numerator. So what we will do is we will multiply the numerator by 1 over 8 and the denominator by 1 over 8. So multiplying 8 by 1 over 8, that gives you 1. And multiplying 9 by 1 over 8 gives you 9 over 8. So therefore, our standard form is the quantity of x minus 1 quantity squared over 9 over 8 plus the quantity of y plus 1 quantity squared over 9 is equal to 1. And that is how we reduce to standard form the general equation of an ellipse. I hope you learned something and I'll see you on the next video.